Hey everyone! Today we're going to look at 1-point wonders and low point wonders and just good one-off abilities, 1-point abilities, even if they aren't in the wonder category, for all 6 classes. So we're going to start with what I think is the king of the 1-point wonders classes, the Arcanist. First on the list is probably, if the Arcanist is the king of the 1-point wonders, Mirror of Arachtes is, of the 1-point wonders, the king of the 1-point wonder abilities. So Mirror of Arachtes, with just 1 point, you get 3 seconds of total invulnerability. And you can take this ability and actually expand on it, because every point you put into it will lower the cooldown until it gets to 12 points, at which point it stops, at 13 and beyond, it stops gaining or losing cooldown, however you want to look at it. But if you go into the Arcanist tree, throwing a point on Mirror of Arachtes is awesome. You will get a huge benefit out of this ability for almost no investment, and you have the option to invest in it in the future. Great ability, great 1-pointer. It's even great at 12 out of 12. So in a low pointer, in the low pointer category, because it would require 2 to 3 points, Calidor's Tempest. 1 point on Calidor's Tempest, 1 point on Wrath of Agravex, gets you the ability to have an on-command knockdown for your character. Now, knockdowns are kind of important in Ultimate, especially when you're initially coming into Ultimate, because there are a lot of enemies that cannot be frozen, cannot be stunned, they can be slowed, but they can't be stopped except through knockdowns. Human enemies, skeletons, I think spiders, grobbles, more. I know there are more that I'm just forgetting. If you do a knockdown on them, you'll just send them flying across the room and into a wall, including some heroes, and you can actually just chain knockdowns on a couple of these guys to just keep throwing them into the wall. So having Wrath of Agravex is a really nice 2-point investment. And if you need that tiny bit of armor reduction, you can actually throw up 3rd point onto Inferno and have 3 points, getting you a tiny bit of damage with a knockdown and a tiny bit of armor reduction. So again, low point ability / 1-point wonder ability, depending on what you want to do here. Electra's Flash Freeze, 1 point on the Flash Freeze itself, gives you this AoE that will freeze enemies. It can't work on heroes, and enemies have resistances to it, but it is a nice just snare to stop enemies near you. And it, like Mirror of Arachtes, if you invest in it, you can actually get it to a really awesome ability. A really awesome ability that hits the whole screen. So, I mean, about that ring right there is where it would hit normally, but you can actually get it to hit the entire screen, and it's a really, really great ability at 1 point or maxed out. Generally, I don't take it beyond 12 though. And then Absolute Zero you can throw on 2 because it adds a slow. And if you're playing a character that deals physical damage, you can actually pick this up as well, because it reduces the enemy's physical resistance. Or if you're playing with a friend that does physical damage, this will help them out as well. So, Arcane Will as a passive is another really great 1-point wonder ability, because for 1 point, when your health drops below 70, which is about right there, you get a big damage boost and energy regen. Just a lot of flat energy regen. And since you're going to be, well, maybe you're playing a caster, maybe not, but generally with Arcanist, you're playing more castery things. And for my Aether Ray guy here, by example, getting this energy regen can help him sustain the beam. So it's actually kind of a tactic to let to let a little bit of damage in before I pop Mirror of Arachtes, to have this pop, and then I'll have the damage boost with the energy regen for 3 seconds. Really, really nice little ability. Doesn't require a lot of investment. I don't know that it would be good maxed out, but 1 point is actually not a waste on Arcane Will. Also in our, like, the Arcanist has that suite of abilities to just screw over enemies. Nullification is part of that, and Nullification is another, like, very high tier 1-point wonder ability. And what Nullification does is when you hit an enemy with it, it takes away their positive benefits. So if you're fighting like a burning enemy, or like Salazar Blade of Cthulhu that does possession on himself, you can actually take that off of them and bring these enemies more under control. There are a couple abilities in the game it doesn't work on, but it works on almost all of the enemy buffs they give themselves. And it also, probably most importantly, works on reflective damage. If you're fighting those mages that put up their own Namir Viraktis, or if you're fighting things with the reflective enemy ability, you can turn it off, which means you can actually get to them without hurting yourself. So a really, really solid addition to the sort of great setup that the Arcanist has for screwing over enemies. So, kind of another that is a bit like Mirror of Viraktis and Electra's Flash Freeze, but I would actually put it lower than that. It's Iskander's Elemental Exchange. It's sort of like you just throw a point on here, and then you let some plus skills take over, and you can actually get a lot of flat elemental damage, energy leech, conversion from physical to elemental, and energy regen. It's also kind of worth investing depending on your character. So my Aether Ray character here needs a lot of energy regen, so he has this at 12 out of 12, mostly for that energy regen. You might have a character that does a lot of melee attacks that is sort of a, an elementalist type, like a Spellbreaker, who also would benefit from having this maxed out as well. But throwing a point on here and letting plus skills boosted up, on top of that point, is actually kind of nice. Same goes for Overload, which can give you the elemental burns and percent elemental damage, and for Elemental Balance, which gives you crit damage. So these are definitely also some nice one-pointers, but not in the one-point wonder category. I would also list Devastation as a one-pointer. Not really a one-point wonder, but if you throw a point on it, I mean, my guy gets it up to 10 by just throwing 1 point on it, and it's actually a really nice just AoE. So for like the 5 seconds, it just bombards the area with tons of damage. Really, really solid one-pointer. So the Demolitionist is next, and the Demolitionist, I would say it doesn't have the same, like, 1-point wonderage that the Arcanist has, but it has a couple. I don't know that any of them would be wonders, though. So Flame Touched and Temper are both 1-point abilities, sort of along the lines of Iskander's Elemental Exchange, where if you pick them up for 2 points, and then you have a lot of plus skills, it becomes a greater benefit. Flame Touch gets you fire and lightning and burn damage, and then also gets you offensive ability. So you could get a little bit of an offensive ability boost just by putting a point on here. It also would be worth investing if you have the spare points to push that offensive ability boost and the elemental damages it has. Temper is the physical side of Flame Touched. It can give you physical, pierce, and internal trauma damage, but it also has a little bit of retaliation damage. But most importantly to me, personally, is that bit of armor, because that armor is applied to each of your armor pieces except your belt. So having that bit of armor can be helpful for building your defense up. Now, in Ultimate, armor kind of is less effective, but it still is helpful against trash mobs to sort of reduce the damage that is incoming. And if you have, say, the Golemborn Greaves, that's +3 to Temper, and then the Sash of the Immortal Sage is another +3 to Temper, and my guy has, I think, this is just an example, +2 to Demolitionist skills. Just 1 point on there gets him up to 9, which is a nice little bit of armor for him. I mean, the damages are kind of wasted for his abilities, because he doesn't use any of those, really. But, I mean, yeah, that armor, pretty helpful. I would also list Blast Shield as sort of a one-pointer that can be invested in, because Blast Shield, when it procs, gives you some flat damage absorption. Not as good as percent, but it's still there. And it gives you a nice chance, like a nice chunk of chance to have avoid projectiles, increases all your resistances, and gives you more pierce, fire, and lightning resistance. Invested in, it can actually give you a lot of defense against incoming damage, but also avoiding projectiles for its 4-second duration. So this actually, coupled with Arcane Will, not a bad little boost when you drop below that 70-75% health mark. And then I think one of the main Demolitionist abilities that works as a low point investment is 1 point on Canister Bomb, 3 points on Concussive Bomb, because the Canister Bomb can actually be a really good bomb in terms of damage in and of itself. But putting 3 points on Concussive Bomb turns it into a large stun effect, which is great for stunning trash mobs. The Canister Bomb itself can be invested in if you want to, but I think that Concussive Bomb is really where it's at with Canister Bombs. Now, I'd probably say invest in it if you're doing a Grenadier, obviously, because you have both your grenades that you can just out. But yeah, having the Concussive Bomb is really, really nice for a giant area stun effect. Finally, Vindictive Flame works as a 1-pointer, works at 16, it works at 8. It's an all-round just handy ability to have because of that total speed increase. My guy here has 6 points on it, I think, so he doesn't actually have a lot of points invested in it, but that 9% total speed is pretty good for running around. And we can compare, like this is like his normal run speed. We just turn Vindictive Flame on, and he gets a little bit of an oomph in his step, but it also increases casting speed and attack speed. So Vindictive Flame at 1, at 6, at 16 works great. You can also throw 1 point on Ulzin's Wrath to sort of make it jump, and it has the little chance to knock down, slow, and adds like retaliation damage that's not retaliation damage on. So it's a pretty nice little bonus there for just 1 point. So the Nightblade has a couple 1-pointers and low pointers that are worthy of note. Firstly, I would say that Ring of Steel with 1 point, and then putting it, I think it's a 1-pointer. Might be up to 3 points, but no, it's a 1-pointer. I think it's a 1-pointer. 1 point on Ring of Steel and 1 point on Ring of Frost can give you sort of a pseudo Electrous Flash Freeze in a tiny area. It's pretty helpful for Nightblades that aren't going into the Arcanist at all to pick that up, because they'll be able to freeze all the enemies directly around them. And freezes are nice against trash mobs, and that's really what you want to use it against anyways. Against bosses, I mean, you'll deal cold damage to them. I think that's the main advantage this has over Electrous Flash Freeze, is this deals damage regardless of who it hits. Electrous Flash Freeze, I don't think, can even hit heroes. Shadow Strike is one of those, like, whoa, way up the list 1-point wonders, because it helps you just get around, because Shadow Strike is like, bam, so you can actually use it to hop between mobs. You can target trash that's in a room to just hop around the room. Great for movement, great for escaping if you can do it. I mean, it's like a teleport, but you need to target things. Phantasmal Armor, I would consider a 1-pointer. Not really a wonder, but a 1-pointer that's kind of handy to just put the point on it, and you get a little benefit out of it with some plus skills. It's armor and energy absorption and pierce res and reduced freeze duration and chance of energy leech retaliation. So yeah, it's actually not a bad little ability to just tick a point in if you have the spare point. Anatomy Murder I would also consider a 1-pointer as well, because it will give you a % of cunning, and you can actually invest in it. It's not like the whoa, look out, it's great ability to invest in, but I mean, if you're doing a bleed damage build, it's basically bleed damage mastery. Bonus damage to humans is nice, and % cunning is nice, especially if you need to meet requirements for an item like a sword. Blade Barrier is an awesome 1-pointer. It's like Mirror of Oryxes, but has other things it does. So when you pop it, you'll get your 100% damage absorption for 3 seconds. You'll get a ton of health regen. It's basically a little heal, The only problem is you're rooted in place, so you can't really do anything while you're in it. But hey, it's an escape. It's an oh shit button. It's a really, really nice ability. It's like Mirror of Orestes, you can still move during it, but this, yeah, it's another little, I'm surrounded, about to die, pop it, you're not gonna die. Unless it runs out and then you're still surrounded and you die anyways. But anyway, I mean, details. Blade Trap, I'd also consider another 1-pointer. You can just throw it out and it will snare enemies. It's an okay snare. It's not the best snare. You can invest in it to make it a damage thing because you can get a lot of bleed damage on it. And the Devouring Blades will let it pass through enemies. And then it'll actually, like, snare all the enemies. So it can be a really good 2-pointer. And it actually has some life leech on it. But it's more like investing in it would be for, like, a bleed build to use it kind of as a burst of bleed damage. And then finally, Veil of Shadow. I think if you're, like, Veil of Shadow and Night's Chill can both be 1-pointers, but I wouldn't call them wonders. They're a handy, like, just point, and then you have this buff on that will give you a little bit of survivability against enemies. And then a little bit of reduction to their Piercing Cold and Poison Acid res while they take a tiny bit of cold damage. But invested in, you can actually get, like, good chunks of damage off it because it can actually crit. It procs some of your abilities, and I mean, it'll make your basic attacks just deal more damage to them if you invest in them. So I'd probably say it's like 1 point is good, investment is good as well. And I think that'll cover the Nightblade. Okay, so the Occultist maybe doesn't have any 1-point wonders. There are a couple things where you can run them at 1 point and they're fine, but they would really need investment to really, really shine. And I'm thinking of Doombolt. Because if you put a point in Doombolt and you're geared for Vitality and Chaos, you can actually get a just blast of damage. And it's a little like Devastation, where you can invest in it or it works off of 1 point, and then maybe 1 point with plus skills. It could actually be a totally fine ability to use. This is a Poison Acid character, so I'm not really using it. But yeah, if you're in Chaos Vitality, you maybe want the ability, but you don't know if you want to invest in it, you could still throw a point in, because there is the chance of enemy health reduction, which is pretty nice. And then, well, it just does it. It has a variation on it, and then there's Vitality and Chaos damage. Yeah, I'd probably say it's a 1-pointer, not a 1-point wonder. Same thing with Soleil's Witchfire. It's a bit like Iskander's Elemental Exchange or Flame Touched / Temper, where you could put a point in it if you need it. Same thing with Second Right, but I think they'd be a little better invested in. You'll get actually a lot of Chaos and Vitality damage, and then Vitality resistance off this. So I think actually this is a low point one. I would say more, because it's either something you're investing in. I mean, yeah, I guess you could run it at 1 point each with plus skills. But I think if you throw a point in Soleil's, and then if you need the physical to chaos damage conversion, if you're like a Witchblade or something, then you're going to be throwing the 3 points, 3 points on here to get that more like. I would maybe say Curse of Frailty might be a 1-pointer, if only to get to vulnerability. So it's not really a 1-point wonder. I mean, you could maybe throw a single point in both of these for a little bit extra damage if you're running any of these damage types. But I think they're probably better left invested in. And likewise, I think Summon Familiar could be a 1-pointer just to get to Storm Spirit, but Storm Spirit you'd be investing in if you were taking it. I mean, this would probably be one of the closer 1-pointer things, where you can just pick up these 3 and it gives you an extra extra benefits, like smaller benefits, like you get this tiny little heal and you get the little elemental bonus, and then there's like the stun from these lightning strikes. But otherwise, I think you'd probably want to invest in that, maybe. See, there isn't really, like, there's not a lot going on in the Occultist that's really 1-point wondery. Some things that, you could probably put a few points in and it gets, like, And it's a small benefit, but I don't know that I'd actually do it as 1-point wonders. Okay, the Shaman. I think is going to be a little like the Occultist, where there aren't anything... There's one thing I'd consider maybe in the 1-point or low-point wonder category, and that would be Pact of Mogdragon, or Mogdragon's Pact. If you throw a point on this, you can pick up this. Heart of the Wild, at 1 point is just a little bit of extra health, but a little bit of extra health is extra health. So regardless of whether or not you super invest in Heart of the Wild, you get extra health out of it. And I'd maybe say throw 1 point on Oakskin as well, because you get that little bit of health regen and armor and pierce res. And if you're using retaliation, you get a little bit of extra retaliation. So I would put this Heart of the Wild in like the Iskander's Elemental Exchange pile. 1 point works, investing works. You could probably go either way on it. Wendigo Totem, I would also say, is kind of close to a 1-point wonder, or a low-point wonder, because you put 2 points on here, and you get a little bit of a heal that's independent of the rest of your damage. Because Primal Strike, Savagery, that, invest. That, like, Wind Devil is kind of a low-point wonder as well, but you're going to go for Maelstrom, which is investing in stuff, so it's not really a 1-point wonder. And I'd probably say Conjure Primal Spirit is along the lines of Devastation or Doombolt, where you just throw a point in it and it works great. Or you can invest in it and it works really great. So, yeah, that's another one of those, like, it's a 1-pointer or investor. Not really a 1-point wonder, though. Maybe Grasping Vines could also be like a 1-pointer, because it would add a slow and a chance to immobilize. So, like a 2-pointer. But yeah, Conjure Primal Spirit I'd probably put in a maybe 1-point wonder with investing. I would maybe categorize it like that. And finally, we have the Soldier. And the Soldier's 1-pointers / 1-point wonders, I'd probably list Fighting Spirit amongst them, because you can throw a point on it, and then when it triggers, it's a little like Arcane Will, but it triggers off of your attacking rather than your taking damage. And you can get the percent all damage and offensive ability, 18% of the time in this character's case. Works great with plus skills, and then you can also invest in it to get it even higher and have it happen more. If you're using a shield or a 2-handed weapon, you can use Maynard's Will as a 1-pointer. When it procs, you'll get a heal and health regen for it. It also has a reliable proc, where it procs at below 33% health. Overguard, I would also say if you're using a shield, works great as a 1-pointer. You'll just get, some damage absorption and all the other good stuff related to it. Maybe Veterancy works as a 1-pointer with plus skills, because you could throw a point on it. It will reduce your physique requirement and armor, give you that extra bit of constitution and health, and then with plus skills would get boosted up, which would reduce the requirement, the physique requirement, give you more constitution, health regen. Decorated Soldier, throw a point on here, get some plus skills, you get elemental res and slow res. Not a bad little bonus, and plus physical damage, or it can be invested in. It's only an 8-pointer to get a lot of those things. I'd maybe throw Scars of Battle in there as well for the a little bit of damage absorption and bleed res and reduce stun and freeze durations, and then you can actually invest in it to get more of those. Blitz, like Shadow Strike, is you're walking along in a dungeon and boom. So you can actually use Blitz to get around things and get around the area and get from group to group. All around good movement ability that only requires 1 point. Maybe Counter Strike could be a 1-pointer as well, or something that can be invested in. I think either way works for Counter Strike. And then that might be it for the Soldier 1-point wonders. I mean, you could maybe put one on Markovian's Advantage if you're using basic attacks, because it could also proc occasionally and deal more damage and reduce the enemy's defensive ability for you. And maybe 1 point on Zul'Han's Technique. It'll give you that nice arc, deal a chunk of damage, add a slow. I mean, those two might work if you're using a basic attack build. So thanks for watching, everyone. That was, I think, all of the 1-point wonders in all of the classes. If I missed one, or if you think there is an ability that works great at 1 point that I just skipped over, or if you think there's an ability I mentioned at 1 point that actually works way better with multiple points in it, please let me know in the comments below. But anyways, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time for more Grim Dawn Basic stuff.